All right. So another thought that I've had recently was kind of like the LeVar Ball, stay in your lane. Because, I talk a lot about startups, a lot about business, especially with investors. And I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago with a colleague just about, the boundaries of what we can say as lawyers in terms of giving legal advice. We can't give business advice, but sometimes, the two are, there's like a really blurred line between the two because of the nature of what we're talking about or what we're discussing. um, Once a business comes to you and kind of tells you what their vision is, what they're trying to accomplish, a lot of the times, like the contracts or the documents, the things that we then craft for them are really trying to accomplish that vision. So it's not, you can't necessarily advise a business on, what to do and ways to do it and things like that. It's more so once they tell you what it is that they're looking for, it's trying to find ways to accomplish that. But at the same time, I often have companies that ask me questions about, what they can and can't legally do, especially, I think I mentioned this when I was talking about going into new markets, like given regulation and things like that. So you have to do a lot of research and then kind of apply the corporate vision to, what the regulations are in the market that it's trying to enter. So it's kind of difficult. And also, I was talking to another colleague, maybe I think it was a week or two ago, not the same colleague, a different person, both startup attorneys, great startup attorneys here in Pittsburgh, um, about when there are investors, and you can't necessarily give investment ideas, especially because we work with both startups and investors. So you can't necessarily say to an investor like, hey, I have this startup that you should invest in or anything like that. We can't give investment advice. But a lot of times, if we're kind of working with both on an agreement, we're kind of trying to play the middle ground of crafting a deal that works both. And then it's also about who do you actually represent in that case. For me, I've tried to play the middle role sometimes in terms of, if I don't represent one or the other, I'm not bringing the deal to one or the other. It's more so I'm only brought in just to craft the contract for the deal itself, for the investment deal, and structuring what that investment is going to be like, whether or not it's what kind of stocks are being gotten, and what kind of stocks are being received, and what kind of capital is being given, or just what the capital is going to be like. Sometimes it's debt, sometimes there's no equity that's being purchased or anything like that. So in those cases, I do try to be clear that they still, you sometimes in a startup will have its own counsel already, and an investor will have its own a personal attorney or things like that. So I'm just specifically brought in for the deal. But other times, I am representing the startup, or I'm representing the investor. So it's important to then communicate to the other side, hey, you still need to get some type of outside counsel. Or sometimes they do just trust you, and I try to be as trustworthy as possible. But I also, just as far as professional responsibility, you gotta make sure that you at least tell the other side, if there is another side, if you are representing one side, that it would be prudent to seek outside counsel. I was just watching a Social Network where that guy, what's his name, Eduardo, didn't get an independent counsel to look over the contract that basically signed away his rights to the company of Facebook. So I think it's really important to not only have those recommendations for outside counsel, but just the front load of like I said, staying in your lane, knowing what it is that you can and can't do. And but for me, at the same time, I'm really passionate about startups. I'm really passionate about business, especially in technology. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about what the future is in tech, and then obviously how to make money from that, how to get in on that, and how to benefit from that financially. So there are some blurred lines in that sense. My dream is to get on the creative side and the investment side and things like that. But at the same time, I do like, legal services. I like providing services for companies. So, I have to kind of separate my ambition from, my actual job, what it is that I do to, make an income. And being very implicit in that has been very helpful for me, telling people, hey, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I like to do. This is, what I'm passionate about, but this is what you're hiring me for. This is what, the capacity that I'm working in. And most people are pretty knowledgeable about that, especially, if it's a tech company or something like that. They aren't looking for me to give them advice on technology. And, most of the time I'm not even capable of doing that. I don't even know enough about what they're doing to give them that kind of advice. But most of the time what they're looking for is legal advice, as I said, going into a new market, how to protect their IP, and then how to structure their capital deals or their financing deals, and just making sure that I stay in that lane, and that, as an attorney, that we stay in those lanes. But again, if you have those other passions as I do, you can't speak on those things. And especially if you develop a relationship with your client, which I think is really beneficial, you do have that symbiosis of, yeah, I'm your legal advisor, but I also know what your vision is. And if I have something to say that I think could benefit what your legal vision is, I'm probably going to say that. But I'm also going to say, I'm going to always try to lend the caveat of saying, hey, I'm just an attorney. I don't have a business degree. You might be better suited, having your CFO or having someone who's specifically into business looking over, what that vision is, or maybe what I'm talking about in terms of how to generate the goals or how to find the goals that you're looking for. But at the same time, if it's something that I'm passionate about, something that I believe in, especially if it's tech, and I do believe that I have enough of a vision, enough of a idea about where that's going and what's popular and what's quote unquote hot in that industry, that I could, offer some type of tangible advice in that sense, I'm probably going to give that. So maybe this was kind of a convoluted conversation about staying in your lane, but also maybe sometimes you got to go outside the lines, especially if you believe that it's in the best interest of your client. And maybe that's like the end point to end on. As long as it's in the best interest of your client, you really believe that you're advocating strongly for your client. I feel like that's the most important thing. Stay in your lane, but at the same time, make sure that you're representing your client to the best of your ability.